Well, thank you for choosing to be part of this spiritual community today. I know you have loads of choices about how you spend your Sundays, and I'm delighted you chose to be here with us. And since Zoom may or may not have changed the link this morning and added a separate passcode, congratulations. If you made it here, you're already a winner. Because we're dancing with the speed of life, as David was singing. So today's talk is called The Universal Human. And I'll start with the quote from Barbara Marx Hubbard that I opened the month with. A universal human is one who is connected through the heart to the whole of life, attuned to the deeper intelligence of nature, and called forth irresistibly by spirit to creatively express their gifts in the evolution of self in the world. Above all, a universal human has shifted identity from the separated self to the deeper self that is a direct expression of source. To become a universal human is to evolve consciously, choosing a path of development that has never been mapped before in a world that has never existed before. In a way, in a bizarre way, this quote gives me comfort. There is no road. There is no path. A quote you probably remember from Antonio Machado, "The path is made by walking." And Joseph Campbell from The Power of Myth, "If you can see your path laid out in front of you step by step, it's not your path. Your own path you make with every step you take. That's why it's your path." No one's ever done this universal human thing before. It's a new creation we're talking about. So if we don't know what we're doing, and we're steady in our intention and our desire to connect through the heart to the whole of life, attuned to the deeper intelligence of nature, and creatively expressing our gifts in the evolution of self and the world, then we're in really good company, and we're probably on the right track. Today's talk challenged me, in part because we're living in such bizarre and challenging times, and there's so much visible evidence and experience that demands our attention to all the situations that are divisive and broken and just basically wrong. And yet there has to be a way forward. I firmly believe that there is always a way forward, and we have to make the path. The default thinking point of view is that the path is outside of us, or that somebody else, or a whole bunch of somebody else's, have to change their minds or their behaviors, or both, to create the path. It's never somebody else's job. It's our job. And the kicker is we don't have to accept it. Just like that voice says on the introduction to Mission Impossible, there is always the option of not accepting the task. And of course, you know that Tom Cruise and all of his Mission Impossible predecessors always accepted the impossible task. And we get to weigh the consequences for ourselves and for others of not accepting the task. And consider and decide how it impacts our own level of personal creature comfort to accept, allow, deal with, or put up with continuing the status quo. Herein lies the rub, and the hardest part of the science of mind teaching. The most challenging work is never done out there. The most challenging work is always inside of each of us. So from yesterday morning's meditation practice, we did a reading from Ernest Holmes' 365 Science of Mind, page 285. I won't read the whole thing here, but I could. It would apply. And if you don't own this book or want to hear me read the whole thing, I recorded it yesterday for our YouTube channel, and I posted a link on our Facebook page. Anyway, here are some of the things Dr. Holmes said in that reading. Today, I lay down the burden of carrying the load of responsibility for life for myself and for others. I remember that Emerson said, "The universe remains at heart unhurt." That Jesus said, "Let not your heart be troubled." I know that I live under the government of good and am guided by spirit. I lay all trouble aside, seeking to look through it, beyond it, above it, to detach it from the realm of reality, to separate it from any consciousness that belongs to me or to anyone else, regardless of what any problem of the moment seems to be. I align myself with the power of good and of right action. I take up no arms to fight the negative. I turn joyfully and resolutely to faith, realizing that light is immune to darkness, that night has no power over the day, that dawn dissipates the shadow of midnight. So we have this challenge before us. Can we see what's happening in front of our eyes and distinguish it from capital R reality? Can we envision or imagine our world through the eyes of this universal human? I think we can. In fact, I honestly think we need to, if the universal human is ever going to show up in this world of form, this world of our experience. So what else does Barbara Marx Hubbard say about this universal human? First, she says nobody's ever gotten there. Nobody's reached adulthood as a universal human. She has glimpses of herself as a universal human teenager. And that's as good as she got while she was writing. She wrote, "None of this have I done before. I am constantly stretching, challenged to go past my previous limits, getting newer every day. Yet in the midst of all this activity, I have finally come to realize that my goal is not any external activity, but rather myself, emerged, stabilized, and whole as my new norm. In loving relationship with myself and in support of others doing the same." She continues, "Although my essential self has signaled me for years to focus inwardly until my self-centered mind was fully incorporated in my God-centered mind, my localized self ignored the focus of my relationship with the beloved within and insisted on acting out in the world, overriding the deeper guidance for self-realization." At some level, we all know that we attract what we are. It's not a pleasant thought, but it's true, right? That's a core teaching behind this whole law of attraction thing that got so much publicity when The Secret came out 14 years ago. What was misleading in that presentation was that we could attract something to us by focusing on it. The truth is, it's a little more complicated than that. We have to become it for it to become real in us. That's why The Secret has been discredited so many times as New Age crap. It's actually much simpler and much harder than that. The true law of attraction is not just repeating our desires over and over again until they become real. It's about becoming internally aligned with the good that we are, the good that we claim, so that it's already part of our reality. And the physical world then just has to catch up because we've already become our future selves. I remember way back when I decided to move to the desert and I was still living and working in Houston. I'd been out here a bunch of times and I just, I had to move. That was all there was to it. And I knew it was past time to go. When I was driving down the interstate and I felt like I saw the Catalina Mountains off in the distance. And any of you who know Houston know how crazy this is, because Houston is totally flat. There are no mountains within hundreds of miles. And yet here I was driving down I-10 and I could see them in their entirety. They weren't there in my world of experience, but in my mind, I had already moved. And I sensed, I could grok, for lack of a better word, I could grok my new reality. And it took the world of form 6 months to catch up with what I could clearly imagine. Or to say it another way, it took 6 months for my outsides to catch up with what was already true on my insides. Some of you may have thought today's spiritual thought sounded vaguely familiar. I know I'm an optimist. Back in early July, when Dr. Carmen Smith spoke, she used this quote as part of her talk. It took me a long time to find it because it's not in a book that's commonly used. It's quite out of print. The chapter headline for this chapter is "Bless and Curse Not." There are 2 stories in this chapter. One about an actor with a bad attitude about other people, and nobody wanted to work with him. After this actor talked with Dr. Holmes, he realized he was cursing his environment and everyone in it by being so negative. Once he learned to change his own mind about the people he interacted with, his world changed, but he had to change his mind first. And then, and I'll quote, because he was an actor, he was able to dramatize his new role in life, that of a positive and supportive human. And because of his deep sincerity and conscientiousness, he faithfully began the task of reversing his negative mental attitudes. Silently and constantly, he blessed everyone with whom he worked. At first, this was exceedingly difficult because his negative thought processes were deeply entrenched. But he did not give up. He persisted. Shortly thereafter, it appeared as if a miracle had taken place in his life, as it always does when we consciously direct the law of the creative spirit for our good, the good of others, and align ourselves harmoniously with life. The second story in the chapter is about the disciple, Simon Peter, who must have been really frustrated with somebody behaving badly, actively bad-mouthing Master Teacher Jesus. He asked Jesus how many times he needed to forgive this person. I believe the Jewish Torah says you have to forgive somebody 3 times for the same offense. Peter thought his behavior had been exemplary because he had forgiven this guy 7 times. And you know what Jesus said, 70 times 7. Simon Peter was bewildered, not understanding why it wasn't okay to hate and why he had to keep forgiving these people. Forgiveness means reconciliation in spite of estrangement. It means reunion despite hostility. It means acceptance of those who have been unacceptable. It means reception of those who are rejected. When our patience has run its course, when it appears to be only common sense, we stand up and accuse our brother. Let us remember, we must still forgive again and again and again. The principle of love, forgiveness, blessing, and understanding must win in the end, as Peter discovered. In a short PBS interview from 2016, our recently departed beloved Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg shared a memory of a young law student in a class she was teaching who was very angry when reporting out on a ruling. And then she remembered the words of Ginsburg. Anger is a useless emotion. It doesn't give you any power. Do something positive instead. Being angry is a useless emotion. using anger to provoke or promote positive action is useful. There's my soapbox for the week. None of us have yet achieved status of adult universal human or adult essential self. Ginsburg was probably closer than most, as were Gandhi, John Lewis, Martin Luther King, and Mother Teresa, just to name a few of the light bearers that come into memory. It doesn't mean they were perfect. They were human after all. But they were intentional, and they continued to practice what they knew to be true as best they could. I'm going to close with a few more words from Barbara Marx Hubbard on the adult universal human. So we can imagine, envision, and aspire to become them, because we know our images of our future affect our reality. As we see ourselves, so we act. As we act, we tend to become. You know this is true. We live in a participatory universe. There is freedom at the core of reality. To become a conscious co-creator is not a metaphor. It is the power of metamorphosis. We are designed to know the design and to participate within it, as aspects of it, within ourselves. All of us, now attracted to the path of our own emergence, should realize that we do not do this for ourselves alone, nor do we do it as ourselves alone. We are actually expressions of the great creating process itself, finally expressing consciously through and as universal humans on planet Earth. The essential self is the personal expression of that process, incarnating in each of us as us. Our maturation as adult universal humans holds within it the fulfillment of the promise given to the human species through its great avatars, seers, seekers, and visionaries. There's work to be done, and there's work we have to do first within ourselves, to clear ourselves out of everything that stands in the way of love, human kindness, compassion, wisdom, and forgiveness. Then we can act without anger and judgment if we need to. And we can do something positive and constructive. We are the ones we've been waiting for. Do this as best you can. Be persistent. Bless yourself and bless us all. Thank you. So now I'm going to move into our community prayer. So if you want to hold some thought, some image in your mind of some way you can step into your more authentic, essential, beloved self, that would work. And I'll speak the words. In our world, we only speak affirmatively. We only claim the good we desire. We speak into our future, seeing the positive, seeing the productive. So I rest. I rest in that sweet spot, knowing the divine goes before me and behind me and above me and below me and all around. Knowing that I live embraced and encompassed by this whole and holy presence, as does each individual who hears my voice. Each one already lives as an expression of this divine self. And each one has the opportunity to step in to more and more of who they have come here to be. So I know this whole and holy self as love and peace and joy. I know it as life and ease. and light. I know it as inclusion. I know it as unity. And I know it shows up in my world as each one sees the divine in the other. Each one sees the wholeness. Each one sees that magnificent expression of the one. And I know this reality with a capital R for each and all. And even though we fall off the wagon and we forget and we lose our way, each one has the chance to get back up, to re-engage and remember, put back together and claim the wholeness that lives as each and all. I feel so grateful to be able to be in community today in this way and to be part of this greater expression of good. I feel grateful for each one who has chosen to come out today to participate, and for all who have worked ahead of time and behind the scenes to make today happen. So grateful for this experience and for this opportunity to be more. I bless this day and everyone in it. I know it as easy, good, and very good, and I let it be, and so it is.